I am Michelle.
I'm Essie.
Alina.
And I'm Raquel.
And together,
we are one.
Thank you for joining us and Happy New Year to everyone. We are excited that you are here to join us again for yet another episode. Together We Are One is a women's talk show. We are all about being to encourage, to empower, to equip, and have women come together. It's really about educating. It's really about equipping. It's empowering. The goal is to really help women to heal, to be delivered, to move forward, and move away from the pain, right? So that we can all heal together from the hurting heart. So with that being said, this month of January, we are going to be speaking about childhood trauma. Last month, the month of December, we spoke about childhood rejection. So this month is going to be about trauma, and we're excited because we have a lot of information. But with that being said,
we're going to put out a disclaimer here. We are not medical professionals, so any information that we give you, we will like you to pass that by a medical provider so that they can give you a more accurate diagnosis of whatever it is you're seeking for.
Thank you, Alina.
Yeah.
That was great. So we just want to make sure that you know, like she said, we're not professional doctors. We are just normal like you and everyone else. But we do want to bring up this subject because a lot of times we don't realize that we are going through trauma, that our trauma from adulthood comes from trauma in young adults. And I wanted to play a video for you, but unfortunately we're not sure how to do it. But I do want to share something with you. And it's in the statistics. It's everywhere. If you look it up, you'll find this information. And so when we go through trauma, there's different kinds of trauma that we go through. A lot of the trauma that we go through stems from poverty, stems from sexual abuse, stems from witnessing a parent be abused from another parent or someone else. A lot of childhood trauma comes from I said poverty, abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. It also comes from divorces, depending how bad it goes, right? So we want to be able to share some of this information with you. And all of us have something that we're going to share with you. But it says in this article that I have, and I'm going to post it on Facebook, on our Together We Are One Facebook page, so that you can get this information and see for yourself and be able to bring it to your doctor and ask them about it. So I'm going to play this and I'm going to repeat so you can hear clearly what it says.
All have one thing in common.
We all have one thing in common.
Each is a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Each of childhood sexual abuse. And they were asked 5 questions. And they asked them to be honest.
Raise your hand if you have suffered from insomnia.
So they ask to raise your hands if you have suffered from insomnia. And 72% of women that experienced childhood abuse went through insomnia. They raised their hands out of a group of women.
If you have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder.
Now it's asking to raise your hands if you have experienced a mental health disorder. And 85% of the women raised their hands. That's a huge percent of women going through mental health disorder due to childhood trauma, especially sexually abused.
Raise your hand if you have been addicted to alcohol or drugs.
So now it's asking if you have been addicted to alcohol or drugs. And it says 20% of the women have been addicted to trauma, to alcohol and drugs.
Raise your hand if you have struggled with an eating disorder.
Now it says that if you have had eating disorder, and 30% of the women raise their hands.
Finally, raise your hand if you have attempted suicide.
Now, the last question was to raise your hands if you have attempted suicide. Attempted, not thought of it, attempted. And 30% of the women raised their hands saying that they have attempted suicide. All of this comes from childhood trauma. And so I'm going to share some things. We are all going to share a little bit of some stuff that we may know or may not know. I want to share that I've known of some people, again, and I'm respecting everyone's privacy. I'm not putting anyone's name, but I just wanted to share. I know that a lot of people have suffered childhood trauma, and because of the childhood trauma, they have experienced insecurities. They have experienced doubt. They have experienced, low self-esteem. Low self-esteem, right? A lot of the women, they're looking for love in the wrong places because they want to be accepted, because they have suffered the childhood trauma of not having that father in the home, right? Not having that love, not having someone to teach you how to be loved, but yet you were abused. A lot of women, a lot of children, a lot of people, period, suffer from from childhood rejection. They're always anxious and always afraid as an adult because of the things that they witnessed when they were very young. So we want to point out these things because a lot of times when we are very young, we kind of tend to forget the things that we went through as a child, or we block it out. Sometimes we don't even realize that we went through certain things, right? And so, but being able to pinpoint back to as a child, what were the things that maybe caused for me to be so afraid? What were the things that caused for me to be so anxious? What were some of the things that caused for me to be so hungry for money or hungry for food, right? Or if we're suffering from obesity, there's a lot of the obesity comes from, anxiety. A lot of the obesity comes from lack of. So if we have it, it's a comfort. It's a comfort food. Some people suffer from being hoarders because they never had anything as a child. And so now they want to have everything. These are all traumatic situations. I spoke having the ministry that I shared before of Light of Hope Ministries, I've dealt with a lot of women. A lot of women have had so much trauma in their childhood. The majority of them was sexual abuse. Sexual abuse and not having a father there, not having someone to love them, or having someone in the same family, in the same household, or family member assaulted them, molested them, sexual abuse, giving them insecurity, making them worried, always frantic. So it's very important that as adults, we are able to look back and see, why am I feeling like this? Like I spoke to a young girl, a lady, and she said that she was still bitter and angry since her childhood because her father used to beat on her mother. I spoke to another young lady, and she said that she was always afraid and insecure because of her father leaving them as a family. So again, these are traumatic situations that happen as a child, but now you carry them as an adult. Now as an adult, you're not confident. You're always afraid. You're always anxious. You're always worried.
You don't want to repeat history.
You don't want to repeat history, but you tend to repeat history, right? So I'm going to let some of the other ladies, lovely ladies from the panel speak, because like we shared before, we all have a different perspective on it. We all have someone that we know. We're going to have some guest speakers. We did have someone scheduled for today, but unfortunately, due to COVID, she had to go get tested. So we're being very careful, very conscious. We're making sure that everyone's tested. We have a thermometer here. We have, to make sure there's no fever. But for the future, so that we are going to be going stream live, because we want to make sure that we keep everyone safe. We want to keep everyone safe. We want to keep everyone healthy. We know that now in January, the weather's not great. We know that there's, the flu and the virus. So I just wanted to put that out there very quickly before I forget. But Essie, what do you have to say about childhood trauma? Or maybe I'm sure that you can experience some of your childhood trauma, right?
Yes. Childhood trauma. I was reading this on a story, and the person said it's like a ghost that always comes back to haunt you. No matter how much you think you're strong enough to be able to stand firm, it always comes back to haunt you, be in your dreams or with people, trigger things, you know. And as she was speaking, and there's something that also like I've noticed, like a trauma in my experiences in terms of trauma dates back to school as a child. And I remember that I didn't really have friends at school. Like in the neighborhood, everybody knew who I was. I was loved. You know, I was loved at home. I had a great family, great friends in the neighborhood. But once I went to school, the opposite seemed to, you know, be the norm. And so I remember I would go to the cafeteria, and there was this man, we used to call him Mr. Bobos. Because he used to always say, bring your bowls. Basically, bring your bowls, because I've got to go wash it. Bring your bowls. So we used to call him Mr. Bobos. And I remember that he was my only friend in school.
Oh,
so during lunchtime, during snack time, I would go sit next to Mr. Bobos. I'll help him pass the food. And after the food is done, whatever's left over, guess what? I got to eat it. So indirectly, food also became my friend. And that's when I started getting bigger. Because now, whenever I felt sad, whenever I was happy, whatever the case may be, I always went. Because food was my friend. Somebody that I could share that experience with, that happy experience, that sad experience with. And then, you know, that led to a whole ton, like, health issues with myself, obesity, you know, and a lot of insecurities. Because in addition to not having friends, now I'm comparing my physical appearance to other people because I don't fit into that societal norm. So that prevented me from doing a lot of things and taking bold steps in things that I should have taken steps in. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And that is so much, that happens a lot with the students, with the children today in school. You know, they want to fit in, they want to be liked, they want everyone to be close to them. So they'll even go out of their comfort zone and hang out with people just because they're well known, even though they don't like the way they behave. That's because of something traumatic. We had one of our guest speakers in the month of December. She has spoken about when she was molested, and that traumatized her. And she had been shunned, and she had felt rejected. That childhood rejection also became a childhood trauma that she brought into her adulthood. And so, Alina, what do you think? What are your opinion? What is your thought on this subject?
I was reading some of the articles on childhood trauma, and the major ones that they speak about is sexual abuse, physical abuse, all that kind of stuff.
The abuse stuff.
The abuse is the major childhood trauma, but there are other forms of childhood trauma, right? There is natural disasters, like famines, hurricanes, what went through Puerto Rico a few years ago, that causes childhood trauma. There is grief or loss, like they lost someone in the family, let's say because of that natural disaster, or they lost a family member because of, let's say, an accident and they saw that.
Right.
That causes childhood trauma. And bullying at school, childhood trauma, right? And these things affect individuals in physical ways. Like Essie said, it caused her to eat and gain weight. For others, it causes them to not function properly at school, right? It causes their brain to not develop as how it's supposed to be. And keep in mind, people, these are all things that we've read, right? We are not professionals, right? So you can find this information. If you Google childhood trauma, you can find this information. So we're just giving you information that we have read about. Alright, so childhood trauma it's such an all-encompassing thing, right? It affects us in ways that we do not know about, and it affects our bodies in ways that we do not know about, right? So sometimes your child might be suddenly angry, not like regular childhood anger, but anger in such a way that you're wondering, where does this anger come from? It could be a result of childhood trauma, right? So, people, talk to your medical professional so that you can know exactly what's going on. That's yeah.
It's very true, and I want to share to that. You know, witnessing someone being killed, witnessing your parent commit suicide, witnessing other things that the abuse, like whether with the parent or sexual abuse, there's so much going on. The statistics, I believe, said that 85% of children with trauma come from, there's about 85% of childhood trauma. And I believe it's 60%, I believe. I'm going to post all this information on our Facebook page, but I believe it might be 60% of it comes from sexual abuse. But there's also that other percentage that comes from, you know, someone being beaten, someone being killed, the poverty, not having food, you know, natural disasters. And it's important that if you see your child behaving a way that they shouldn't, that they didn't before, if they're being afraid in their room right now, if they don't want to sleep alone all of the sudden, if they don't want to go, if they're going to the bathroom on themselves all of the sudden, after they're getting a little bit older, we want to make sure of any, that we pay attention to anything that is not, that started taking place that was not part of their lifestyle. Because it's very important. Even with eating disorder, right? Because if your child ate normal and all out of nowhere, all of a sudden they're eating, there's something that has triggered that. Like she said, being bullied at school. That's a big factor with children. Because children, as adults, we all want to, there's two things we all want in life. And that's to be loved and to be accepted, to know that everything's going to be okay. But how can we know that everything's going to be okay and to know that we're going to be loved when we're not loved in our home? One of our own safe haven should be our home with our family. There's all this trauma going on, all this arguing, all this alcohol. You know, if there's a parent that is always drinking a lot of alcohol, you know, Raquel, would you like to share any of, you know, something on that?
You know, I was, again, you know, we're reading, and I am amazed at how much it affects women in the long term when it talks about the health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it talks about diabetes, you know, cancer, heart disease, and mental illness. It also says that for women that have experienced the trauma as childhood, they're more risk to get cancer than men.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this topic is crucial for us. You know, it is something that happens in our childhood, and we don't deal with it. We don't talk about it. We don't, you know, start to get healthy. You know, it is something that we will carry the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I've had friends who would say to me, you know, I met this woman, and she said she's over 80 years old, and she is still talking about what happened to her when she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mind-blowing thing for me, because you would say, wow, how can you, you know, be able to carry all that? You know,
years.
yes, had all those years, and I'm sure she had happy times, okay? But that one thing that happened to her in her childhood is what comes out to get her, or haunt her, however it may be, you know. For me, and I know I'm talking about this, I think at a more broader spectrum for the first time, and growing up, you know, I was 7 or 8, and I was sexually molested by 2 men, a father and son. They were neighbors, you know, and as a child, you're innocent. You're innocent. And that was something that happened, but yet didn't come out to affect me until the age of 14, when I received the prophetic word. And all of a sudden, I started getting images in my mind of what I found myself in. And that understanding at 14 years old, now I said, wait a minute, did this happen to me or did not happen to me? But within that first year, I realized, no, this happened to me. I'm not making this up. This is not something that, you know, that I dreamt about or anything. It's happened. I went through it. But what I did is I buried it.
Right.
You bury it because I had other things going on. 14, 15 years old, you're into other stuff. So I buried it, but as time went on, it would creep up little by little, and then I would bury it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I got tired of going through the same cycle. Somebody had mentioned something, a smell or something, and for me, a smell would trigger it.
Wow.
A smell. And it would bring me right back to that, and I would become like withdrawn. And it would take several days for me to kick myself out of it.
Right.
So it came to a point in my life where I said, okay, even though I had spoken about it, especially with my kid's father, I did speak to him about it, what I went through. But it's not about just talking about it. It's about going through a process of healing.
Right.
A process of forgiveness. And I didn't understand that then, and it took probably to the age of 26, 27 where I had an encounter with God.
Mm-hmm.
And in that encounter is where I told God, enough is enough. I released these two people. I forgave these two people. I went through this process, and was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. Okay? Because you think that, no, they did that to me, so why should I forgive them? But forgiveness is so crucial because it's not about them, but it was about me. Okay? Releasing them released me. They still had a hold in my life, and yet they were no longer present. One of them had already passed. Okay? So for me, having gone through that experience as a child, it stole a lot of joy. It came to the point and it was stealing joy. So when I had that encounter and I released these people, and I tell you, I cried it out, I yelled it out, okay? It wasn't pretty, okay? But it's not meant to be pretty,
Right.
okay? Because at the end of it, it's like a butterfly, right? It goes through this process and it's not pretty. But at the end, what blooms is what's beautiful, right? So, and I thank God for that. I thank God that He showed me the way so that I can release and be free, be delivered, be healed. That's why I can talk about it and not worry about who's listening to it. I would share it a lot with women on a one-on-one, but never at a level of this platform. So, and at the end of all that, I just need to say that there is true healing from any trauma that you have gone through. There is true healing if we just allow ourselves to be honest to where we're at and also be wanting to be healed. We have to be healed. It's not like the drug addict, the alcoholic. We need to admit that where we're at, and allow. For me, it was God. For you, it may be something else. I don't know, maybe just, going to a professional and dealing with it. But for me, it was God. And I thank God for it. I thank God for that healing and whatnot. And it's made me a better person. And I realized that even though what I went through is not what I would have wanted for myself, but now I can use that to impact others and let other women know, hey, the possibilities are there. Guess what? I went through it too. You're not alone. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to trauma, it is time to just let us deal with it, because there's something better out there for us, each and every one of us. There is definitely something better for our life. Let's not let trauma be the beginning, nor the middle, or the end of what we do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, vulnerability with us. As you were speaking, I was thinking of like I said, I deal with a lot of women, and so listening, I know of a few girls, I know of many girls, but I'm thinking of one in particular. She went through trauma when she lost her father to a marriage divorce. She went through trauma because her mom wouldn't let her see her daddy. She went through trauma because now she brought in another man that had 2 young boys, and they molested her over and over. She went through trauma when she finally had another stepfather, but she couldn't come out of the room, and she had to be like Cinderella. She went through another trauma when she went into the military and got raped. She went from one trauma to another trauma to another trauma. And this person goes, if you see a person and they're full of anger and bitterment and resentment, we got to stop saying to ourselves, why is that person so miserable? Or why they're so nasty? Because we are all guilty of having that perception of people. We're all guilty of being mad at them or having the same attitude without knowing why they're like that. Or if we see someone, a homeless or an addict, we're quick to say, oh, that was a choice they made. No, we don't know what kind of childhood trauma they went through. And as I'm sharing about the young lady that I'm talking in particular, she's like in her own world. She's angry about everything with everyone, but she really hasn't healed. Although she's talked about it a few times, different things here and there, and she says she has forgiven. But I had shared, I don't know if I shared it with you, but I had shared that God had revealed to me that I had a lot of hurt in my heart, and that I was like the woman that was bleeding for 12 years because I was quick in forgiving but not giving it to God. So I was forgiving but holding inside of me. That caused resentment, anger, bitterness. It caused a lot of dis-ease, a lot of infirmities, and that's where the cancer comes. That's where the mental health comes. That's where fibromyalgia comes. In the natural, yes, there's all these names for all of this. But in the spiritual, in the inside, every dis-ease, everything that comes to us is because of something that we have experienced, and we haven't connected it to be able to acknowledge it, to be able to go to that place and say, wait a minute, this is where it came from. I release you now, right? I let go of you now. I forgive you now. I don't forgive you because you deserve it, but I forgive you because I deserve it. And we may have moments of happiness, but we never truly have joy until we're able to forgive, let go, and let God. Because the thing is, it's all of that is venom and poison to our spirit, and that holds us back. All of that is what doesn't allow us to lose the weight, because we're carrying all the weight of the things that people said to us, of the things that people did to us. No person that is angry just was born angry. Mm-hmm. A person that is full of anger, resentment, bitterness, that doesn't know how to smile and be happy and be joyful like we should be, they're not angry because they want to be angry. They're angry because they're still hurting. Because somewhere along the line, they also experience the childhood trauma. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure that you've witnessed people and you'll be like, what is their problem? Mm-hmm. If you're at a store and the register person has an attitude, you'll be like, don't you know how to smile? Because I was guilty of that. Don't you know how to smile? Can't you smile?
If you don't like the job, then leave. Like, why?
Right. If you can't be a people person, you shouldn't be having this job. You don't know if they're homeless. You don't know if they're still mentally, having those nightmares of the flashback of what was done to them. And unfortunately, the truth is that there is that mental health issue that we all experience. Because there's a little enemy out there that is constantly in your head saying to you, remember this, remember that, oh, you were not loved, oh, you were abandoned, oh, you were forsaken, oh, you were beaten, oh, you were raped. All these traumatic things that happened to us. Yet, we're still trying to figure out how can we move on from here. How can we, be truly joyful and not continue to be held back in bondage and be sick. Continuously being sick. Because it will attack your joints. It will attack your heart. Women, and I'm gonna say this: women that suffer a lot from cancer in the breast area is because they're lacking of love. I know you can call me crazy, but I've known of women that have had cancer, cancer in the breast, and they've lacked of so much love. They've been in toxic relationships. They have been in not having, the love that they wanted. So it's very important for us to be able to acknowledge and admit, wait a minute, where is this coming from? And just so that you know, we do have our phones because we have information of childhood trauma, and that's why we're looking at them. But it's a huge percent out there. So a lot of times we're afraid of talking about it because we're worried about what people are going to say, what they're going to think. Oh, my family does it. Oh, that would humiliate and embarrass my family. But the thing is, your family embarrassed and humiliated themselves because they allowed it to happen, or they did it to themselves. So stop trying to protect them, because I feel that this is very important. We don't need to protect those that hurt us. We don't need to cover for them. They did it to themselves. We're not trying to humiliate anybody. I've said that from the beginning. We are not here to point fingers, to make anyone feel bad, to make anyone feel guilty. This is not about them. This is about our journey and your journey so that you can get healed. Because the goal is for us to be able to provide information to you, right? To be able to educate you with this information, so that now you can go on Facebook, you can go on YouTube, you can look it up and get more information to say to yourself, this is why I'm eating so much, or this is why I'm so angry, or this is why I'm so depressed, or this is why I'm so worried, or this is why I can't sleep, right? Because there's always something there that is triggering you. So don't worry about, listen, this is about you getting your healing. This is about you moving forward. This is not about family members, not about your spouse, not about your parents, not about your kids. We need to be healed so that we could be whole, so that we could be blessed and be a blessing unto others, right? Alina, would you like to share anything else?
Right. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about what do we do when we figure out, okay, that I have childhood trauma, or I know, or somebody in my family has gone through trauma or anything like that. What we have to do is put aside our pride, because we can go to therapists, but we won't go to therapists because, oh, people are going to know that, oh, I'm crazy. No, you're not crazy. You need help, right? You have a broken foot. Would you go to the doctor to get a cast put on your foot, or would you just say, oh, I'm going to see about it myself and walk around with this broken foot and have it heal all wrong, right? And then you're in pain. Right, so I'm looking at my phone and I'm looking at one of the websites. It says recognizetrauma.org. It says people who have experienced trauma are 15 times more likely to attempt suicide. I'll let that sit there. All right, 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic. 4 times more likely to develop a sexually transmitted disease. 4 times more likely to inject drugs. 4 times more likely to use antidepressant medication. 3 times more likely to be absent from work. Now, you need your money, right? If you're not going to work, you're not going to get your money. Listen to this. 3 times more likely to experience depression. 3 times more likely to have serious job problems. 2.5 times more likely to smoke. 2 times more likely to develop chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and 2 times more likely to have a serious financial problem. You're not working, you don't have any money.
Some people overwork because they're trying to forget. They're
Right.
trying to forget the life they were before.
Keep busy.
Keep busy.
You keep
Yeah.
busy.
And numb yourself.
And numb yourself. Yeah.
So go to the doctor, right? Go to the therapist who can help you put stuff in order in your mind so that you can find exactly where it is, right? It may be a little child. That child also might need a therapist, right? Not because that they're a child, they don't need therapists. Oh, they're too young for that. They're too young for a lot of stuff that's happening that they're seeing,
Right.
right? So get help. Don't think that you can do it alone, or You can walk around with your broken leg and it's going to be all right. You'll be limping down the road and you can't even walk properly because of that. So get help.
And eventually, Eileen is on fire here today. This is great. But eventually that broken foot will get infected and they'll have to cut it off. So that's a great analogy. I know she comes with these great analogies, right? But it's so true. Because, you know, I'm thinking about what you're saying and I'm like, it's true. They'll have to cut out their foot because if they don't take care of it, other parts of it are going to break. And if we don't take care of our heart, other parts of our body are going to break, right?
No, she hit it on. She hit the nail on the head when she said that. We go to doctors for every other thing except
Mental health.
for the emotional end, because of the stigma that comes behind, the label that comes behind it. Yes, a little crazy there, right? You get that label, you know, people, even our families, if you even start talking about stuff, you know, and it's like they'll walk away from you, or they'll try to overshout, you know, you because they don't want to hear about that stuff, you know, because most likely they also experience.
Right.
Like if I was able to do it, but why are you complaining about it?
Right.
If I survived it, you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You know, I know someone who, the young lady I was talking about, she shared with their mom how they were feeling and everything that they were going through. And the mom said, you'll be fine. I went through it. You'll survive. That was the mom's response.
And a lot of times with trauma, we tend to, like Raquel was also saying, she kept burying it. And burying it is not going to, that's not going to make it disappear. You're just hiding it. And she said that she always, the smell always trigger her back to that time. And I think one way, well, for me personally, one way that I've been able to heal from childhood traumas is reflecting on not just them, but also myself. Like, how am I contributing to my own downfall? How am I contributing to my own eating disorders? How am I contributing to my own health issues? What am I doing to myself?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I letting these things affect me?
I would withdraw. Then I'm not giving my all to what I was doing at that moment.
So would you say connect? Like you mentioned connections as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times people think that if I associate myself with someone that has been through it, being what I've been through, maybe I could heal myself. But it's like, should you be careful with that as well? Because some people may have been through it, but they don't necessarily know the tactics and the ways to heal from it, and hence keep you in that same spot. You know,
Well, some people, I think, they may say they're healed, but they're not. Mm-hmm. You know, they could put up a front, you know, but I believe that if you get down to the nitty-gritty of things, you know if you've been healed or not.
And one thing you mentioned earlier, it's not just about talking about it. It's about letting go. It's about being vulnerable. It's about stop being worried about what people think, say, and do. Because it's not about them. It's not about their healing. It's about what we need. And like the girls were saying, we're not going to be a better mother, a better daughter, a better person if we're not healed and whole, right? Because God did not create us to be broken. He created us to be whole. Unfortunately, the things of this world, they break us. So we can either become bitter or we become better. We can learn from it or become like it. And unfortunately, if we don't have a relationship with God, I'm not talking religion, but I'm saying if we don't have a relationship with God, we become bitter and angry. And then we become this ugly monster, right? And
at the grocery store.
At the grocery store. And and then our children suffer. Our children, for those of us that are moms, our children suffer the consequences. The cycle continues, you know, and it's a ripple. So I know that one of the things that we talked about is that together we are one. We want to be able, not through us, right, but through the testimonies, give you the tools to teach you and help you and guide you. So that's what it's about, educating. It's about encouraging. It's about equipping and empowering you. Because if we can't give you the tools, the tools that we give you, we're sharing our testimony. We're sharing information. That's education. Providing you different links on the Facebook page. And when we have our website, if any of you wants to donate your time and build one, just kidding. It's on the work. But once our website is up, we're going to provide links for you. We're going to be able to provide different resources that you can go and get help, because we all, if there's any person in their life that says that they are completely perfect, that they don't have no rejection, that they don't have no trauma, that is a lie.
That's a lie in 3 biscuits.
That's a lie, because every one of us have experienced something. I don't know, we have some camera girls here. Would you say, did any of you not experience any of that? You've all experienced that, right? We've all experienced it. And that's why together we are one. We're one community. We're one body. We're one here to love one another. If there is no together, there's no one to love. But if we love one another, if we're together, we can help one person one day at a time. And if this program can help and reach even one person today, and help them heal, and help them want to go and get some help, that they're able to acknowledge, look, they're talking about me. It's time that I let go of my pride, right? It's time for me to let go and get some help. I'm tired of being tired of living this same sick cycle, of continuously bleeding, right? Because it's a pain that doesn't stop. And we keep adding things to it. When I speak about the young lady that I was speaking, she's gone through so many different traumas. And today the Lord brought that to my heart. Because, we're quick to be like, oh, she's got anger issues. Well, yeah, she has anger issues. She's gone through so much trauma since she was conceived. She's gone through this trauma. Trauma when she was conceived, the parents not getting along and fighting. Listen, that is so traumatic for the children. When you see parents that are arguing day in and day out, when you see a parent that is shooting up drugs, when you see a parent that is drinking and becoming like an ogre, like a monster, and beating on your parent, when you're seeing, a family member constantly comparing you and not thinking you're good enough or smart enough or anything like that, that is all very traumatic. And so we want you to know that, before we start here, we're praying with you, we're praying for you. We want you to know that together we are one. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, type them below, inbox us. We would love to hear from you. If there's any subject or any other question that you may have, or that you may want to comment, we welcome those comments, because we want you to be a part of this. This is not about us. This is about all of us. It's about being together as one. Ladies?
I want to say something. I'm sorry. Parents, research what trauma is, right? So that you'll be able to recognize it in your children. Because children don't necessarily have the words to say exactly what it is they're feeling, right? So you have to be able to look at your child, look at their attitude, see what's changed, right? Just to get down on their level and say, hey, what's going on? Do you feel this way or do you feel that way? In this way, you become your child's doctor, right? And therefore you help your child, right? Because as I said before, children don't necessarily have the words to say, unless they're a genius. Well, then they will tell you everything. But then they might not, because they're thinking, oh, mommy won't listen to me, or daddy won't listen to me, right? Or grandma or grandpa won't listen to me. Whoever that child is living with. Be aware of your child. Learn the signs and symptoms of trauma so that you can recognize it when it happens to them. You may say, okay, they're in a loving home. Nothing's going to be happening to them. But they go outside, they go to school, they see things, right? So be aware of your children.
That's very true. I don't think people realize that whatever we experience as childhood trauma it will trigger at some point, and you will have nervous breakdown. You will end up in a psychiatric ward. You will end up with mental health. All of these childhood trauma, they will trigger you. I'm telling you because I know of people. They will trigger you to schizophrenia and bipolar. Please listen. Please listen. Childhood trauma will trigger schizophrenia and bipolar and mental health. And many people go through nervous breakdown because of things that happened to them as a child. And I know this because I know of people. Again, we are not doctors. I am not a specialist, but I have witnessed. I know of many women that have experienced childhood trauma. They're always frantic, always worried, always afraid, always anxious. Some are overeating. Some don't eat at all. Some are very insecure. It's a lot that comes with childhood trauma. It's a lot of baggage. And if a child comes to you and you see that they're different, don't reject them. Don't shun them. Don't ignore them. Those are, our children are a gift from God. Our nieces and our nephews are a gift from God. Our godchildren are a gift from God. And so we should not take that for granted. Even all of you are a gift from God. Don't ever think that you don't matter. Don't ever think that, it's too late, because it's never too late. You deserve to live a life full. A life that is full of health, of happiness. A life that is full of love and light and laughter. And that's what God's plan is for you. For you to have hope. For you to have a future. And not for you to be stuck on a situation or with a person or afraid of what people think and say and do that ultimately will drive you insane. And we don't want that. And I'm sure that you don't want that. You don't want that for you. You don't want that for your children. Ladies, would you like to add to that?
I have one thing
Yes.
to add to Alina's parent advice. I feel like as a parent, if you also haven't healed from your childhood trauma, you may not necessarily know when your child is also going through traumatic events, because you yourself don't know how to fix your own situation, or you yourself haven't healed from that situation to be able to identify, because you're so focused on, like, subconsciously you're so focused on your pain that you don't really realize it in your child's behavior, your child's actions.
Right.
So I strongly urge parents to also, like I said, self-reflect so that how do I heal from this so that I can be a better parent to my child, and I can also help prevent them from going through what I went through.
And that's a really good point, because I think it's important for parents to say, wait a minute, I had that kind of behavior when this happened to me.
We tend to forget.
Right. We tend to forget. We bury it. We ignore it because we don't want to go to that painful place, right? But we need to acknowledge it. We need to be able to go to that place and say, wait a minute, I had the same kind of side effects, the same kind of behavior. I lashed out. I was angry. I wanted attention. All these specific things, right? And so it's important as adults for us to say, let me acknowledge what I went through. Let me share. Let me get help, and then let me share with my child. This way they can understand, and maybe we can help each other, and also get help for one another. That's a really good point. Right? Raquel?
You mentioned something about we're not born angry, right? And all the trauma does is just adds to us. That being said, is we're not identified. That does not define us. That is not who we are. We need to remember that there's an original version inside of us that is yearning and wanting to come out. We were created in a certain way, but our surroundings, our environment has sort of come with a subversion and has caused us to derail ourselves a little bit and behave in ways and do things that our original self would not do, because our original self was not made that way.
Right.
So, I will encourage women to seek out your original self. say, you know, what is it? Who am I really? I am not the substance of what came to be after I was born. Who am I really? And we know that we know who we are inside, what we really want to be, how we really want to act, how we really want to talk. You know, we know that. You know, I think we all, as women, we understand that part of ourselves. We truly know the version that's inside. Let's look for that version. Let's look for that originality in ourselves. And we will see that, yeah, you know what? There's a happier me inside. You know, there's one that, the woman inside of me that wants to encourage others. You know, the woman inside of me that wants to better my life. You know, I'm sure you want to better your life. You know, so it's just, I challenge you. It is a challenge that we put out, you know, together we're one. We want to challenge you to really look and be honest with yourself.
You know, I want to mention, this is a women's talk show, but we do know that we've had some men that watch it, and we welcome the men to watch it. I think it's a very important thing for you to do because you can learn from it. Some of you have daughters, some of you have wives. Maybe you can think to yourself, you know, why is she behaving like this? Maybe she had a childhood trauma. Why am I treating her like this? Am I treating her like this because I also experienced a childhood trauma? I didn't have my father there, or I was abused. Why am I causing the one person that I'm supposed to love, my wife and my children, why am I causing so much pain to them? And try to get help for you. Because we know that the men are the head of the house. They're supposed to be the priests of the house. They want to be validated. They want to be respected and loved, just like everyone else. But perhaps you also need to get some help. You also need to let go of that pride, let go of that ego, and say, wait a minute. Everything that they've been talking about today, that sounds like me. Everything that they shared of, you know, some of the what they shared about either their children or their wives or sisters or daughters, or I witnessed that in our home growing up. Maybe that's why I'm behaving like this. Let me see, how can I get some help? Just reach out, do some research. You can go to our Together We Are One Facebook page. And just, again, every day we're going to be posting information in there for you. And we want to say thank you for joining us. We want to say invite other people. We're here every Sunday at 3 p.m. Invite, share this video. Know that it's important. This was not something that I chose. It's something that God wanted for His daughters and His children to be healed, to be whole, to be educated. And we're doing this together, one day at a time, one person at a time. And again, I am Michelle.
I'm Essie.
I'm Alina.
And I'm Raquel.
And together,
we are one.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great week, and God bless you. Bye-bye.